How I got into video games.
How I got into gaming.
How did I get into gaming?
How I got into gaming.
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 How I got into gaming. Well, it's always been a part of my life. I grew up with an Atari 2600 and a Commodore 64.
It all started with the Amiga 500.
My friend had a Super Nintendo, and I'd go over, you know what, it wasn't a Super Nintendo, it was just a Nintendo system.
I was 5 years old and my dad brought home an Atari 2600.
Actually, my Uncle Bob had one of those tricked out pinball machines that didn't actually cost quarters.
My dad brought home an Atari 2600.
4 letters. SNES.
We had a NES and a Sega Genesis.
But I would say the moment where I just fell in love with video games was when I would have been around 8 years old. My parents got me and my brother a Nintendo with the Duck Hunt and Super Mario package, and well, I guess that was one console or cartridge. And my neighbor and good friend at the time, their parents got them a Sega Genesis. So we ended up sleepovers at each other's house playing video games just like all night long, and that's really where I just fell in love with the aspect of the social part of gaming with a buddy and passing the controller and trying to beat Mario or Sonic or try and see who could get the highest score in Duck Hunt.
A game called Discovery, where you would play the character that would go through the spaceship trying to collect crystals, and you had to spell words to get through doors. I got so hooked on this game. It was just such an escape from everything, and we would actually play it as a family, which is weird because my brother and sister or whoever was playing, the other two would watch them spell words, and maybe we'd help each other spell the words. That was a long time ago. I was 5 years old. I've been playing video games since I was 5.
I didn't get to have a console when I was a little kid, but my best friend did. His name was Mark. We lived right next door to each other, and I would go over to his house all the time, and we would play Nintendo, and we would play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Manhattan Project, Battletoads, and Base Wars, because those are the games he had, and we would try to play all of them without dying, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Oh, so great.
The games that I remember he brought home were Asteroids, Pac-Man, Defender 2, and Berserk. That's B-E-R-Z-E-R-K. Berserk. That was the game that enthralled me. It was like a top-down shooter game, and I think his name was Mr. Happy. Would just like randomly appear if you were taking too long to clear all the enemies out. That game was amazing, and that's what hooked me on video games.
I remember Pac-Man and Defender. I remember really loving Defender more than Pac-Man because it was kind of challenging, which is probably why we like Resogun so much now. And then I remember going to a Toys R Us, and I remember seeing Yars' Revenge. I remember seeing the cover art for Yars' Revenge. I was like, I want that game, I want that game. And then just spending hours and hours and hours with the one joystick, one button, just trying to get the highest score, because that's all you could do back then. There was no end game for it.
Of course, in my family, you were not allowed having consoles. And I was also part of that generation where proper ladies didn't play video games. Apparently we did tea parties and dolls and some crap. I don't know, I didn't play. If I had any friends that had consoles, we always used to go over to their house. So an Atari, Dig Dug at the O'Coins, you guys were awesome. Same thing, Sega, I got to learn what Sonic was. And hedgehogs are not blue, that was a lie. And then eventually, sometime in the early 90s, my dad broke his own rule and he bought us an old NES. And then we figured out how to play, you know, Duck Hunt and Hate That Damn Dog and Mario, and then we figured out speed runs and just who could rap what.
We'd all played other little video games before on their Commodore 64 way back in the day, or even the original Nintendo, but it wasn't until the SNES came out that we could actually play a lot of games really with our friends. Street Fighter 2, Mario Kart, Star Fox, stuff like that. That was N64. But still, it just really revolutionized everything for me and really got me into it more. And games like Final Fantasy III with much better stories than we'd seen really before on video game systems. It really hooked me, I guess.
I used to play a lot of Sonic 2. That was kind of the game that I played as a kid,
But it wasn't really, when I started to identify as a gamer, it wasn't until I was like 10, 11 years old, and I went over to my friend Chow's house, and he was actually playing Final Fantasy VII on the PC. And he was on the final disc of the game. He was in the meteor crater going to fight Sephiroth, and he was telling me this journey that he'd been on in Final Fantasy VII, and me being unfamiliar with all of that kind of stuff. Like I played Sonic kind of at a glance. That was really when I was like, oh my god, like video games have stories. They're capable of narratives and interactive narratives at that. And so I ended up getting a PS1 and playing Final Fantasy VII and playing the demo for Metal Gear Solid repeatedly, and that was really when I realized that I could immerse myself and be more engaged in a video game than any other form of media.
I actually was late for my own birthday because I was too busy playing a video game to go out and get drunk legally. Any kind of game that took you out of your life and gave you this cool, you went into this really new world. You weren't who you were. It didn't matter if life at home sucked, didn't matter if school sucked, or if you were in that weird fun phase that we all call awkward. You went into this RPG and you were now Link, or you were Mario, and all you gave a crap about was saving the princess, getting to that end scene that said you are the hero. Didn't matter if people were picking on you at school. According to that game, you were awesome and you just saved the world.
That's how I got into gaming, was definitely the 2600, and that's what hooked me to, yeah, I want to beat that high score, and then going forward with the NES where you just couldn't stop playing the game. So.
And that's why even today I'm still a huge gamer.
We all start in the same place. We all had friends that shared with us or family that shared games with us. And for some stupid reason, people are so caustic in the gaming community now against each other. So don't be a dick. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week. Share, like, subscribe.